Hello guys, just doing a low carb Q&A basically. Trying to get used to this new camera and this new streaming program. And if you're not on to use this streaming program, you should be on Chrome, Firefox, and there's one more. But if you don't open this program up through Chrome or Firefox or the other search engine, it will not operate correctly. It'll keep telling you that you need to download Chrome or something like that. So just be aware, if you're going to use StreamYard, which it's extremely easy to use, you should open it through Chrome, Firefox, and I think the other one's like Opera or something like that. I don't remember. I'm going to share this onto my social media accounts. I noticed since I started messing around with this camera, trying to get the hang of things, that maybe some people possibly got annoyed, and I've lost 4 subscribers since I started going back and forth with the camera. I don't know what their problem is, but probably some snowflakes like always. Sharing it to the different groups real quick. And then we will be rocking and rolling. If anybody shows up, that is. It's too late here. It's 11 o'clock. Just getting used to the program is difficult. Okay, I've got it shared to 3 of my groups. People are probably sleeping, and probably not even going to jump on. So we'll see what happens. I like this. I don't know if you drink this stuff, Brandon, but this San Pellegrino or the Perrier. Somebody posted on one of my keto group that they have a sour apple, or no, green apple or sour apple Perrier flavored water now. I thought that was pretty cool. The mineral water and stuff like that is what's pretty crazy, because there's like all these conspiracy theories where people talk about even the mineral waters are nothing but just regular junk water that they just basically rebottle in plastic. I don't know if it's true. I don't know much about any of that stuff. All I know is it tastes good to me, and it doesn't cause me to have any issues, and that's all I really care about. And then well, theoretically, the store brand is water, right? So if we know the store brand is water and Nestle puts out their mineral stuff, they're the only one, I think, them and maybe Ice Mountain, that have a regular style water that actually have minerals in it. Like San Pellegrino has minerals in it. Perrier has minerals in it. The other waters, even the store brands and stuff like that, are supposed to not have any of that stuff in it. It's supposed to be just a regular water. I don't know. People just got to do whatever works for them. And we're already taking so much out of our diet as it is. Then people want us to stop drinking bottled water. It's like, dude, I quit doing the bread and the rice and everything else, and now you're on me about bottled water? Give me a break, you know? I've cut out enough stuff in my life to try to get healthy, but it's still not good enough. And then people still come at you, oh, you're drinking out of plastic and you're using Teflon pans and the Teflon coating is hazardous to your health. And it's like, man, seriously, give it a rest. Sometimes it's just not worth getting into these types of conversations with people because nothing is going to be good enough. And I'm not willing to make my life any more uncomfortable than what it has been after doing it as long as I have, just to suffice making somebody else happy. So we were talking about the sparkling water, the mineral water, the fizzy water, and Brandon was saying that he drinks it when he wants a soda. The carbonation kills the craving for me. Absolutely 1000%. Every once in a while, I might still have like a diet ginger ale if I want something, but what I end up doing is if I want it just a little bit, I'll grab one of the carbonated waters and I'll drink it. If it keeps up and I don't cure that craving, then I will have one. I don't restrict myself from that. Yeah, I've learned now that with as long as I've been doing it and the amount of weight that I've lost so far, that I have control now. Even if I wanted something that I know I shouldn't have, I have control now. I know that I can stop after I've had it. But it took years of staying away from stuff just to gain that kind of control. And every once in a great while I might have like a diet ginger ale or diet Pepsi or something like that. I don't restrict myself from having that stuff. And no, it's not the healthiest, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna deprive myself of something that I legitimately want. It's silly. There are people out here that are living off fast food hamburgers from Wendy's with the highly processed cheeses and stuff like that. And I would do it too if I was out and I needed something to eat. I've done it before. I've got videos where I go through the Wendy's drive-thru and I show people getting a couple burger patties with cheese. It's not the end of the world. But I guess we can spin this so many different ways and converse about it that way. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to make it. Nobody has the most perfect answer for anything. You just try to do the best that you can. That's it. So, looks like people are legitimately sleeping, because normally by now I would have, 15, 20, 25 people. And I'm looking right now to see if anybody even responded. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, everybody's in bed. I guess the other thing that we were covering earlier that person was asking about was why doesn't dairy agree with them? And the clean cut version would be because of the amount of histamine that's in it, or because they don't produce enough lactase to break down the lactose. And to fix that, sometimes you have to reduce histamines in your diet in order to eat a food that has high histamine, or the digestive enzymes, the bile salts. Digestive enzyme could help break that down to where you don't have any problems. So if that person jumps back on here, or somebody else wanted to hear about that sees this video later, that would be a way to approach that. Right. There was a section or a segment or whatever Dr. Eric Westman was talking, and Dr. Eric Westman is by far the most knowledgeable ketogenic doctor that we have, next to Dr. Stephen Feeney, Dr. Jeff Bullock, Dr. Ron Rosedale. But Dr. Eric Westman, Duke University, he's been doing this since 1980, or previously to 1980, with Dr. Robert Atkins. And I remember he was talking about a situation where this guy had lost this crazy amount of weight and was really, really healthy. And Dr. Eric Westman asked him how he was doing it. And he said, well, I'm doing like a keto carnivore approach, and I just basically live off of Wendy's burgers. I go through the drive-through and I tell them, give me a couple burger patties with cheese, and he says I have Diet Coke and I eat my burger patties with cheese, and I don't do anything else. My blood sugar doesn't go up. I don't feel bad. I sleep good. I take a vitamin every once in a while, and basically I just do that as often as I possibly can because I work all the time. And this guy lost a tremendous amount of weight and kept it off. But does that mean that everybody's going to be able to do that? No, not at all. And, we can see that with the guy that went like the entire year on the potato diet. All he ate was potatoes for an entire year. And this guy was like, 300-400 pounds, and he got all the way down to like 190 pounds on nothing but potatoes. So that is not going to work for everybody. Everybody's not going to be able to do that. There's a girl that I know that's from Arizona. Her name is Jessica Link. She actually has, I think, her own Facebook group now, and she does some of the events there. I think she spoke at the Adapt event, and she does some keto stuff there. So you might want to try to hit her up on Facebook. She used to be an admin of mine on one of my groups, but life gets in the way, and she had to go about doing her own thing. And I think she talks at some of the events and stuff there. She's actually doing keto as well. Her name is Jessica Link, Link. And you might be able to hit her up if you're ever like, out and about wanting to find a new event or something like that. Oh, cool. Yeah. She used to be one of my admins back before the whole keto thing like really started to kick off and get popular. I mean, I had been doing this for quite some time whenever she popped on, and I was really impressed with how well she wanted to learn and help people, and she just started soaking up all the information like a sponge. So I actually brought her on the admin team, and it was good. It was a really good situation, and she's got her life, her kids, her family, and stuff she's got to take care of. So we ended up parting ways, and she's kind of doing her own thing now. But I think she's doing very, very well. A couple other admin. I've had few admin for years now that have helped me run the groups, which is pretty nice that they would stick by somebody for that long, even though I have my ways of doing things. They still stick right by you, which is the most important part, is to find people that believe in what you say, and don't shortcut them, don't lie to them, tell them the truth. So that's what I do. What was the other thing? I'm trying to get together an event here next year. If I can put the money together, it's going to cost me somewhere between like $3,000 and $5,000 to rent. There's like an Irish historic hall where you can get food and everything else, and the minimum cost was like $2,800 to rent the place, and you could put, I think it was like up to 300 people in the auditorium or the room that you'd rent out. But they had them up to I think you could get up to like 500 or 600 people in a room, but just the average generic turnout, more than like, not average, but a little bit less than average, because people need to see the event happen a few times to know whether or not it's worth going to. And they were saying it's going to be like somewhere around $3,000, $3,500. So next year I thought about maybe putting on my own event here, calling it Windy City Keto Carnivore, and just trying to get some action here in the Chicagoland area, because we don't have anything. We have nothing. Let's see where that turns out, but that's the next mission on the radar. And surgery is happening in March, so after Christmas and the New Year, it's going to be lots and lots of fasting for me, because I got to have hernia surgery. So they want me to try to drop as much weight as possible before the surgery, so it's as successful as possible. They explained to me that they've been seeing, like, over the last 5 years plus, that the more abdominal fat you have, or the more visceral fat that you have around your abdominal wall, and you have hernia surgery, the more chances you have at failing the surgery and a hernia just coming back. So they did one about 5 years ago, and they didn't do a very good job. So they're saying they want to possibly go in there and redo the one from before. And then there's a little small one right above my belly button that popped up about 2 months ago that they want to cover. And they said you try to drop as much weight as possible by March 31st or 30th or something like that. So that's the next goal for me. Lots and lots and lots of electrolyte fasting. Lots of salt water, and just the longest I've been so far is I went 9 days last year. No, the beginning of this year I went 9 days. Last year I went 8 days, and then 4 or 5 days at a time is like nothing. It's become really, really easy now for me. But that's what's kind of going on in my life right now, and nothing too crazy. Just trying to run the groups, work, be in a relationship, and basically just keep going. Drive. Yeah, I started with like 16 hours at first, and it was like really, really easy. And then I was like, well, I'll just go 24 hours. So I went 24 hours, and that actually first 24-hour one turned into 48. And then I think the next week I wanted to do like 60 or something like that. And then I went 60 hours, and I was like, screw this. So the next one I'm just going to go 3 days straight through. And it was like within 3 weeks, I had built myself up to being able to go 3 days straight through. And then I think it was just a couple months of practicing that on and off. I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to go 5 days. And I went 5 days straight through. In the first 5 days, I felt like I was going to eat my arm off my body, but I was able to learn the different types of signaling and the way I felt throughout the time of practicing that on and off. And then 5 days, eventually turned into 7, then 8, then 9. And I know what it feels like now. I know that a lot of the misconception about fasting and how you're going to die and all this other stuff is not very true. Your body actually, it's weird, because 24 hours in, your blood glucose is depleted, but you still have muscle glycogen. About 48 hours in between there, it's not exact, but about 48 hours in there, muscle glycogen depletes. That your body starts to see the sugar levels are dropping off all over the place, and your organs do use a little bit of sugar. So your pancreas tries to do one last ditch effort of releasing glucagon, and right at the 72-hour mark before everything resets, you get like this last ditch effort of glucagon release, and it brings sugar levels back up a little bit. Ketone levels drop down just a hair momentarily, but then by the 72-hour mark, everything's been depleted. You got your blood sugar stores are gone, muscle glycogen's gone, glucagon last release gone, and then at the 72-hour mark, white blood cells are basically rebirthed, and you basically just rebuilt your immune system in 72 hours. And then anything past that is like extreme autophagy, where the good parts of the cells start eating the bad parts of the cells, and psoriasis, skin tags, things like that, eczema, all of a sudden they just start disappearing. And people are like, well, I had all these skin conditions and stuff, but through this multiple day, 3+ day fasting, all of a sudden things started clearing up all over my body, and I don't know what happened. Well, what happened was, through the fasting process, your body is eating the bad parts of the cells that are causing these things to gluconeogenesis. A lot of people don't even understand gluconeogenesis correctly, and a lot of the keto doctors and stuff like that we watch, they don't even explain it correctly. Gluconeogenesis can happen multiple ways. During a deep fasted state, the way that you produce basically blood sugar is not necessarily from protein sources. You may lose a very, very small, almost immeasurable amount of muscle mass, where your body has to use some kind of protein source to create blood sugar, but it actually strips the glycerol backbone of fat. And the glycerol backbone of fat is actually what it uses to create the blood sugar. So if you wanted to think of it in gluconeogenesis form of proteins turning into glucose via the liver, most of the time when that stuff happens, it's somebody that's severely metabolically destroyed, or it's somebody that they're they're eating a massive amounts of lean protein and not enough fatty protein. So gluconeogenesis is more of a demand-driven process. If the body sees the blood sugar levels are dropping low, then it will say we need to start creating more blood sugar. So it will pull things out of stores. It will strip the glycerol backbone of fat. I like that name, gooey, squishy, liquid fart. Thank you. And what ends up happening is it brings blood sugar levels back up, but eventually it gets to a point where it can't do that anymore. And if you fast long enough and you don't have body fat to live off of, your body will actually start, shutting down organs and eating different parts of the body that shouldn't be eaten. So that's where a lot of the misconception where the gluconeogenesis stuff comes in, because they're like, oh, if you eat too much protein, it's going to turn to sugar. No, it's not. Or if you fast too long, your body's going to go through this gluconeogenesis phase and it's going to start pulling muscle from your body, and that's how it's going to create a sugar. No, it really doesn't. It's very, very small that it does anything like that, and they almost can't even measure it. So there's a lot of things. When I first started this, I remember specifically a doctor sitting down in an interview talking about gluconeogenesis, and he was talking about how too much protein or fasting too long, the body's going to use muscle protein, and you're basically going to look like Dr. Michael McGregor or Dr. Fartface or whatever, one of these vegan doctors that look like they're all shriveled up by the time you're done fasting, because your body's going through this gluconeogenesis form and it's using its own body fat or its own muscle on the body to create the blood sugar. And it's like, dude, it doesn't really happen that way. I mean, you can think that way all you want, but there have been people that have fasted long periods of time and they didn't lose muscle mass and stuff. Actually, when you get into a ketotic state or a ketogenic state or fasting, a deep fasting state, it almost preserves and protects the muscle because of the state that you're in. It tries to not lose that, so it will strip glycerol from fat first to create blood sugar for the organs in a minimal form before it actually gets into anything like deep. Well, I would suppose if your blood sugar, says what happens to your blood sugar when you poop, well, it all depends. It would stay the same. Blood pressure may go up from the extra pushing, but blood sugar would stay the same unless you're taking some extra fiber and stuff out of there that the vegans think that helps bring blood sugar and stuff down, which is a complete lie. It's almost something you don't even need. But other than that, when you poop, your blood sugar is going to stay the same. Blood pressure may go up though. Or another theory could be when you poop, you're clearing yourself out. And when you clear yourself out, you're digesting the food that's in your body more. If it has a place to go, your blood sugar may go down a little bit. That's what happens when you poop, Mr. Squishy. What happens to your blood sugar when you eat too much sugar? Can you answer that question? Gooey, squishy, liquid fart. So, gluconeogenesis it's a topic that I would presume that most people don't even know what they're talking about. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe the information I got as well is not good. You never know. You don't know who you're listening to or where they study or where they found that information. I found that I do most of my own testing on myself. So, for instance, about a year and a half ago, I went out and bought 2.5 pounds of roast, and I just barely fried it up in a skillet. and I was in a debate with Dr. Joel Kahn, that idiot vegan doctor that likes to run his mouth like he's tough shit, but he's really a coward. And I got into the middle of a debate with him, and I told him that I would prove him wrong. And he was like, "Oh, if you eat too much protein, your blood sugar is gonna go through the roof." And I said, "Oh, you're so full of crap, dude. You don't even know what you're talking about. Just because you got an MD in front of your name doesn't mean anything. You went to school, you learned out of a book, you have blinders on. Now you call yourself a doctor. I went to school, I learned with blinders on. They taught me how to fix a car. Most of the things that I learned in school doesn't even apply anymore because it's all crap. It's just a basis of learning, and then once you get out into the field, you have to expand on that. It's called growth, and most doctors can't do that because the medical board or the government has them so tied down they can't progress to move forward and try different things because we have people's lives at stake. It's not an automobile like me. So I experiment. Can I do this better? Can I do this faster? Is this really how this works? Is this how that works? And I got into a debate with him, and I was telling him, I was like, it's not how that works, man. I can sit down and I could eat over 2 pounds of meat in one sitting, and I'll almost get no effect on my blood sugar at all. And basically, he copped out of the conversation. So I go live on my business, keto page, and I've got that 2.5 pounds of meat in front of the camera, and I'm ripping this meat off, 2.5 pounds of this stuff. And I eat it in like 20 minutes. I forced myself to eat this that fast because I wanted people to see that what this guy was saying was a complete lie. It doesn't just happen that way with everybody. You have to be like a diabetic, super metabolic sensitive, or you have to have like you have years of abuse on your metabolism for something like that to be that effective. And it's fatty meat. So my glucose went from 88 to 98, and that was like 6 hours later, and then right back down immediately to like 80, 88 or 89, somewhere in there. And I tracked over a 12-hour period. My ketone level stayed constantly between like 1.1 and 1.3 the entire time. I almost had no glucose effect at all, no response. It was very minimal. But anything that you eat, you could start to eat a green salad with nothing in it, just nothing but leafy stuff. And just the effect of you knowing that you're about to consume this food, and the enzymatic response from your stomach in increasing your insulin levels just because you're about to ingest some kind of nutrients could induce a little bit of a blood sugar increase because of everything, the process that's going on. It could be a number of things. Just the thought alone could cephalic insulin release. Thinking about eating something, cephalically secreting insulin, preparing for your body to start eating food. These processes happen without even having to put food in your mouth. And I proved it to this guy. I shared the video, and he was gone. Had nothing to say. He's a coward, because a lot of what these guys talk about is not true. So, well, I mean, I eat more than 2 pounds of beef per day. I can tell you that right now. I might consume 5 or 6 eggs. I might have 2.5 pounds of beef. I might have, a half pound or a pound of chicken or something like that. I mean, for lunch, sometimes I'll have a pound of brisket and a half pound of chicken alone. And then I'll come home and I'll eat another dinner sometimes if I want to. I don't do that all the time. A lot of times I'm stuck to, like you said, like I might sit down to one meal a day, and I might just have 2 pounds. Maybe that's all I feel like having that day. But a lot of the stuff these people are talking about, and I don't want to get into like name calling and pulling apart, different professionals and stuff. Like, I want to, but I don't want to. I don't think it's like the appropriate thing to do. But then there's the other side of me that thinks, people should know about the flip-flopping. When Thomas DeLauer puts out a video or something like that, or he's got an ad that pops up where he's talking about, oh, those of you that eat bacon and eggs every single day, you're not doing the keto diet correctly, or the carnivore diet correctly, or whatever, he says the keto diet. And, when you consume bacon all the time and eggs all the time, that's not a keto diet. Who are you to tell anybody what a keto diet is? For one, you're not even a doctor. And number two, You didn't build any of your body off of a ketogenic diet. The majority of that was off of fasting and stuff. You had money to get where you're at. It wasn't because you used keto to do that. And it's kind of one of them things. If I want to eat bacon every single day and eggs every single day, I've known people that go from 500 pounds to 225 pounds and they're rock solid from eating bacon and eggs and steak every single day. It's silly for them to say what you can and you cannot have, or you're not doing it correctly, because that's not the way they want you to do it. Anyway, what else? We can easily go off on these tangents and I could talk forever, but I want to talk about something that I don't want to hold you up if you got something to do, Brandon, or nobody else pops in here. I wonder, gooey, squishy, liquid fart. How about that guy? I almost felt like blocking him from the stream because, yeah, I don't know if he'll come back and cause problems, but I don't know if that's the kind of people I should. You know, and another thing too is the misconception when people go carnivore. People go carnivore and they're like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks later, I've got diarrhea. What's going on? Why do I still have diarrhea? I mean, you told me that things were going to regulate and change. I had diarrhea on a carnivore diet for almost 6 weeks before things started getting solid. And then you get to a point where it's like you almost don't go at all because there's no byproduct. When you're not getting tons of fiber and material from plant matter, there's really nothing to crap out. And I think that's why a lot of the vegans don't explain things correctly. And they're like, oh, you don't even poop as a carnivore. I'm thinking to myself, well, the reason I don't do that is because my body's using the nutrients that's there. You don't go every single day. The reason, you know, we have these standard recommendations of you should be going at least once a day is because we've been eating shit food multiple times a day forever. And we have byproduct that comes out because our body can't use the different types of fiber and the matter that's left over. But when you eat something like meat and it goes into your stomach and your body starts to break it down and it turns into a liquid slime going into your digestive tract, your body can almost absorb that into its entirety, where there's like nothing left to actually come out of your body. So if that's not a key sign that something is ancestrally appropriate, I can't ever say that, ancestrally appropriate, and that's just a bioavailable food. It's got tons of nutrients, it's got tons of B vitamins, zinc, proteins. If you look at the profile of like a ribeye, you'll almost find everything that you need inside a ribeye by itself without even eating organs. So it took me like almost 6 weeks of doing the carnivore diet before I started actually getting a little bit of solid matter coming out. And then within the end of like, you know, like a 2-month period, I was going a little bit each, like every other day, every couple days. And a lot of people are like, what should I worry about? You know, when I go carnivore, I haven't went in like 5 days. Do you feel pressure? Do you feel sick? Do you feel like something's wrong with you? If everything feels great and you're sleeping good and you're not feeling pressure or pain or anything in your belly, I wouldn't worry about it. You're probably using everything that you're putting in your body. And then they're like, you know what? I didn't think about that. That makes a lot of sense. Well, it's because we don't have standard medical practices that look or study this type of stuff. It's just us. It's people like you and me, Dr. Sean Baker. You know, we're the people that are actually looking and dealing with people on a regular basis. We're in the Facebook groups, the keto groups and stuff like that, trying to get in people's lives to figure out, is this normal or not? And now we're starting to see after a few years of doing this, yes, this is normal. But you can't, because you don't have a lab coat and credentials and stuff like that. A lot of these vegans and stuff and the rest of the society in general, but mainly the vegans, well, that's a what do they call it? That's anecdotal experience. That doesn't account for anything, you know, scientifically. Yes, it does. It absolutely does, because a lot of the scientific studies and the information that we have spans from people anecdotally saying, hey, this is what I've been doing and this is how it's affecting me. And then if enough people come forward and say that, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe we should get like a little team together to start looking into this to see why is this becoming a pattern. So it's surprising to me how a lot of the vegan doctors and the vegans and stuff in general just discredit everything else because of the ideology that they follow, the belief system that they follow. They would rather see a human get hurt or injured or die over an animal being eaten for food to sustain human life. Right. Calf liver once or twice a week is really all anybody needs to eat. It's got enough vitamin C and nutrient density to it to where if you ate it once a week, that's all you would literally need is one serving. So it's just a matter of, where do you want to go with it and what do you want in your life again, and how do you want to approach your healing? And it's crazy. Like you, for instance, you just started and you've already lost all this weight. I'm sure you're feeling way better than ever. And, you tell people how you do it that are from the more hippie hugger, snowflake, vegan community, and they're like, oh my God, you're a demon. You need to go to hell. You need to die. All this. I had one guy come on here and tell me that he hopes my kids die. He wishes I got hit by a bus and a car and all this other stuff. And he's telling me that my whole family should burn in hell. And he's a vegan. And I was like, wow. I mean, that's great coming from a vegan that's supposed to stand for equal, like this whole no harm, no foul this, no wanting to bad things to happen to people or animals or anything like that. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, they're interested in one thing, and that's that ideology, just this brainwashed beta male type following that they're after. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what possesses them to even be that way. And if you look at a lot of the ones lately, they look like they're the vegan couple, the happy, what is it, something vegan couple. They look terrible. Raw Bliss, the guy I think just ended up in the hospital and stuff because his body's been shriveling away. These vegan kids that are dying on the vegan diet, where the parents are putting them the parents are putting these children before they're even done, semi-developing or even ready to come off of mother's milk. They're feeding them this processed, squished up, mashed up, blended broccoli and spinach and everything else. And these kids look terrible. This Aga in America girl recently, where her kid looks like he's literally got worms inside his belly and the rest of his body is just basically attacking itself and eating itself away. And he's just a little boy. He's not even developing. A lot of this stuff is crazy. Where do you go from here, though? What kind of impact do you make if you get violent with them? You don't make any impact. Then they accuse you and point fingers at you and stuff, and now you become the issue instead of them actually being the issue. I just want to live my life and do what I do and help other people live without being affected by somebody that has a different belief system than me. If that's what you want to do it, but don't get in my way. Don't stand in front of. I tell you what, right now, if I went to the grocery store and there was a bunch of vegans standing in front of the cooler where the milk was at or the eggs was at or like the animal products or something like that, trying to stop people from, and I was the one walking up, I'd bulldoze right through to and hope to God one of them would touch me, because they'd end up in the cooler with the meat. There's no way that I would let somebody else, because of their belief system, stop me in public from my very right way of operating in my life. It would never work. I would never have. I would intentionally, unintentionally hurt somebody to operate through what I think I have the right to do, and that's live my life. So I don't get a lot of that. how people in public think that they can go out and stop other people's flow or path of life, regardless of what it is that they follow. And yeah, I mean, it's really good that, Brandon, that you're getting them to come on board like that. Just today, um, I was at Vans at the Oak Brook Center here in Illinois, and Angie wanted a new pair of slip-on shoes, and I didn't want to just get her some cheap junk stuff, so I actually got her a nice pair of Vans that she could just slip on. They're going to last longer. And the lady that was in front of me was standing there with her daughter, and her daughter was like 13, 14 years old, and she was talking about some stomach issues and stuff like that she was having. And I kind of threw a few recommendations her way on how to approach when the stomach issues are happening and things like that. And I told her I'm not a doctor. I work with a lot of people online that have issues that we just talk, we brainstorm, and we try to figure out what's causing it. And I had given her some ideas on what to look for and how to approach it. And the mom said, "Are you like some kind of like nutritionist or whatever? You seem like you know." No, I'm not at all. Just a regular dude that wants to learn about things in life. And I told her about keto and stuff like that. And she said, "You know what? I think my husband would be really interested." And it was a long line. And her husband came over and talked to me. And he had been wanting to start the keto diet, and now he's following my page. She had him go on YouTube and subscribe to the channel and stuff. And she was like, "You need to follow this guy and let him help you." So hopefully I get some comments from him. I talk about this stuff in public all the time. I did a couple seminars at the libraries down when I was living in Louisiana, and they were great. People would show up, and there's a couple of doctors that showed up. There's a bunch of people that showed up just to hear my story and hear where I'm going with everything and how it's helped me heal and live my life in general, just being on a more ancestrally appropriate diet than, stuffing my face full of vegetables and fruits and all this other stuff that, yeah, it tastes good, but there's where's the bioavailability of the nutrients there? It's done nothing for me. It's not made any of my lab markers change. It's not helped me with my cholesterol or anything. When I went almost straight all animal products, that's when everything changed for me. That's when my cholesterol came down. That's when my HDL came up. I went from like a 50 HDL up to a 64 on carnivore. My LDL went from like 190. I started keto and it went down to like 130. And then I started carnivore and it went all the way down to 108. And then my recent lab result was 90, 92 or something like that, my LDL. And my triglycerides went all the way down to 52. So, I mean, there has to be something said for that. If the exact opposite is supposed to happen and it's not happening, and by me eating an all animal-based, meat-based diet, why did all my cholesterol numbers come down into range? Why are they all healthy now? And it's one of those things where you have to start questioning the people that are telling you what you should be doing, because they don't even know what you should be doing, or they don't. A lot of these medical providers and doctors and stuff, they go to these schools. They're created by companies that have to push money a certain way. If you look at Procter and Gamble, if you go all the way back to 1860, and you look at Procter and Gamble starting and their history of where they started as candle and soap makers, and as they grew and got bigger and bigger, and they bought all these other small companies. By like the 1900s, they were already buying little small companies up. They had thousands of employees. And then 1901, a German chemist comes forward and says, "Hey, look, I figured out how to make vegetable oil by hydrogenating vegetables." By 1911, now we've got hydrogenated oil in the kitchens and restaurants and in homes of every single person out there. So you have to start looking at, like, where did all this come from? Where did these medical recommendations come from? Because before that, we didn't have any of this stuff. There was no recommendation about how much vitamin C and B and D. They didn't have the technology for it back then. But really, was it the technology? It wasn't. It was companies like Procter & Gamble that started buying into these hydrogenated oils, these snacks, these treats, GMOing stuff, because products had to get made, harvested faster, and get it and be pushed out to the company so they can make product out of it. Then we look at, the little cake treats, the different types of seed oils and stuff that were created, the different type of chemicals and stuff. And then if you follow the path of these big companies that basically skew how other organizations and medical facilities and stuff run, you see that it all falls back in the lap of these big organizations like Procter & Gamble that actually pay people to tell you that, you should be eating this much of this, you should be getting this much of that, this is how much fiber you should be getting. And then you look at General Mills and all the junk that's in their products, the trisodium phosphates, the same stuff that's in the cereals, it's the same stuff you find in paint thinner, propylene glycol. It's the same stuff you find in antifreeze, but they use it as a stabilizer in different types of dyes and food coloring and flavoring and stuff like that. We don't pay attention to any of this stuff. And this is the same stuff that we put in chemicals to put it in our vehicle to make machines operate that we put in our food. Oh, but it's small amounts. We should be okay. If you follow the big companies, that's where a lot of the recommendations come from. A lot of the medical providers and facilities and schools and stuff teach doctors and things, a certain way based on who's paying for what to be skewed. And when pharmaceutical companies are the ones building our food pyramid, there's an issue there. It doesn't have anything to do with medical. It's the pharmaceutical companies that want you to eat this much and get that much, and because they know you're not going to be able to get what you need through the food, and you're going to buy vitamins and supplements and products, and you're going to go to the doctor and you're going to be sick, and that's how they make their money. If you're not going to the doctor and you're not sick and your insurance company is not having a kick in and you're paying deductibles and everything else, how are you supposed to help these people create this paycheck that they live in their nice homes and their fancy cars and send their kids to the best schools? And you can't. They can't provide for their own family because people are starting to find diets like carnivore and keto, or we're starting to go back to the basics, and they're starting to find out that the reason that they had nut allergies, peanut allergies, soy allergies, all these other things is because this stuff was put into their life by the very companies that tell them that they should be consuming it, knowing that they're going to get sick from it. So it's a big cover-up. It's always been a big cover-up. There's nobody that's going to be able to get in the way of these people long term. People have to start changing their lives individually, one at a time, because these companies have so much money, they don't care about you. If you look at, I have a video where it talks about the history of Procter & Gamble from the very start, and I'm all over the place, kind of jumble up when I'm talking about things in this video because I get excited and emotional about things, but I cover the entire history from like 1860 all the way to like 2000. In like 1990, whenever they bought Pantene because Pantene was failing, and they wanted to buy the shampoo company, the women's like hairline makeup company and stuff like that, and bring them back when all the chemicals and stuff were in those products, the foods, the snacks, the different types of detergents and household items that they've created over the years and bought, and how they skewed the dental industry in the 60s to switch from like Colgate to Crest by putting money in their pocket. Oh, now this is Crest is the new recommended dental approved toothpaste, all because they put $1 million or a couple $1 million in their pockets to make them start saying this stuff. And now everybody thinks that you got to go to Crest, you got to use Crest toothpaste because it's a dental approved toothpaste, all because somebody paid them to say that. It's a follow the money trail, and it all leads back to big companies. It passes up the doctors, the medical organizations, the pharmaceutical companies, and goes right back to the big companies that run all this stuff. Money trail is strong, and a lot of people believe that their doctor has their best interest in their mind, but what they don't understand is their doctor is a human being just like me and you are. They make mistakes just like me and you are, but when the companies that teach them know that the stuff they're putting out is not legit, those mistakes seem like reality to them, and they don't know any different. So when they're treating, I'll throw a scenario at you. Patient comes in with lymphedema, and they're trying to get this water off the lower extremities. But also the patient is showing a vitamin D deficiency. Well, because of the lymphedema and the vitamin D deficiency, and then worrying about scurvy and stuff like that, they have restricted the sodium because they're trying to get the water off the leg, thinking that sodium is what causes the water retention. Well, now you've basically, this is a disaster waiting to happen now, because if you look at the way vitamin C gets uptaken in the body, it needs a sodium molecule. So if you're restricting sodium, how are they supposed to fix a vitamin C deficiency if it needs sodium? And if sodium is not the reason why you're retaining water anyway, and sodium is an essential mineral for the body, these minerals and electrolytes you have to regulate heart function, your breathing, muscle contraction, all these things, you're restricting something that the body actually needs. What you should be doing is restricting the amount of sugar the person's eating so they stop retaining the water, increasing the amount of sodium that they intake so that it can help uptake vitamin C into the transporter properly. So you restricted sodium, and you're trying to fix a vitamin C deficiency while getting water off the lower extremities, but you've created a double problem here. You restricted something that vitamin C needs. Now you've also restricted something that the body has to use, sodium and potassium, to cross inside the cell. So the cell opens up and allows sodium in. And then as sodium comes in and the cell crosses, the cell goes the other way and allows sodium out and potassium in. And this cross naturally happens over and over and over again. This function is for feeling, it's for muscle contraction. This process is used to actually help rid the body of water and stuff like that as well, for these normal functions to happen. And when these functions don't happen, because you've used bunk medical recommendations, now you're creating more problems for somebody. And this was a true situation. I was talking to a doctor that I was going to at the time down in Louisiana, and she had been watching some of my videos, and I was talking about the importance of sodium and how it allows all these functions to happen. And there's a couple doctors on this page that I've actually seen at the VA and stuff like that, and they're interested in what I have to say and how I study and learn these things. The sodium being restricted was causing more of a problem because it wasn't allowing vitamin C to get uptaken properly. And if you don't restrict the amount of glucose or sugar, carbohydrates, processed foods going into the body, your sugar levels are elevated. And if you look at a sketch of, or the way the molecule looks of vitamin C and of glucose, they are identical, pretty much. So with them being almost identical, the body's going to want to get rid of the sugar first before it has anything to do with the vitamin C, because it sees sugar as inflammatory. So when sugar and vitamin C oppose each other, now whatever little bit of vitamin C you're actually getting in the body, you can't even use anymore because your sugar levels are too high. They fight each other, and sugar's always going to win. So you urinate out the vitamin C. You don't have sodium and stuff in your body because you're being restricted to begin with, so the water stays on your body. And now you can't use what you get. So how do you fix the problem? Well, you increase the sodium slowly over maybe a 2 or 3 month time to see what happens, just a little bit at a time. You maybe take some supplemental vitamin C, and you reduce your sugar levels so low that you can actually start depleting water that's stored on the body. And now vitamin C doesn't fight the sugar anymore, and it can actually start being used correctly, and it binds with the sodium chloride molecule, and you're able to use it. But she wasn't thinking that way. And with me going to see her over and over and over again, within like a 5 or 6 month period, I had lab work done in 3 months because I was doing an experiment, and then I went back at 6 months. She had told me that lady had lost almost 18 pounds of extra water weight off of her body when she increased her sodium level some and reduced the amount of, recommended that she reduce the amount of processed foods, starchy foods, carbohydrates, stuff like that, so her body wouldn't retain so much water. It's the science to it, but people don't think that way. And where I even learned that from to begin with was a doctor that was talking. Dr. John Rollo back in the 1700s was talking about the smell of urine in diabetics and how it would smell different than other people. And then I was reading through his pamphlet and stuff like that, and I could see notes of where he talked about restricting sodium didn't really help so much. And as I moved forward and I was listening to the different doctors talk, I kind of picked up that sodium is essential for almost every single function. And by restricting it, we don't really do anything to the body in a healthy manner. Dr. Nicolantonio has a book out called The Salt Fix, and he goes into the entire history of salt. We used to eat, 8 to 10, 12,000 milligrams of sodium per day because we didn't have refrigerators and stuff back in the day. We cured everything with sodium. We hung it up in meat lockers. Sodium is what kept everything from ruining. And people would have ungodly amounts of sodium back then, to what we would think would be ungodly amounts of sodium. Back then it was normal. And they didn't have conditions and disorders and diseases and stuff now because they were getting ample amounts of bioavailable nutrients and plenty of sodium and stuff like that. And water wasn't contaminated and stuff back then. So it's a big difference on where we came from to where we're at now. And understanding some of the science behind it is very important. So anyway, I could continue to go on. If you take anything away from this video, realize how important sodium is. But as like a little project or a little homework experiment for somebody, if you really wanted to see, when you get off of here, Google the image of a glucose molecule, and then Google the image of vitamin C molecule, and then Google also high fructose corn syrup, and put them all next to each other and see how high fructose corn syrup, glucose, and vitamin C all look so familiar. And then what I want you to do is look at high fructose corn syrup from fruit, a natural, just like what is natural high fructose, or not high fructose corn syrup, natural fructose from fruit look like. Just regular fructose. It's found in fruit in general. It's normal. But compare it to what high fructose corn syrup looks like. They're identical. They pretty much, there's like almost no difference. Glucose, natural fructose, high fructose corn syrup, and vitamin C in a molecular image all look very, very, very similar, which is scary that we put that stuff in our food and our body sees sugar and natural fructose just almost the same as it does something like vitamin C or high fructose corn syrup that's made in a lab. It's very, very scary. Anyway, let's get off here. We're 57 minutes in, and I don't want to keep everybody here. If you guys could, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Normally I don't ask about that with me doing this more editing and trying to get into more of these live videos and stuff like that. I would really appreciate my message to get out to people. So if you could give the video a thumbs up. If you give it a thumbs down, that's fine too. It doesn't matter. But thumbs up would be more appreciative to me, and subscribe to the channel. And if you think that somebody could gain anything from this message, please share the video with them. I appreciate you all, and I'm going to get off here and go to bed. It's midnight. So again, take care and be blessed. This is your keto mechanic, the black sheep of the family, signing out. Thank you.